Welcome to CogniTale, unlocking ancient stories, where the past dusts off its secrets and whispers tales too strange to ignore. Tonight, we're stepping into a day that turned the American heartland into a nightmare, a moment so dark it's etched into history like a scar across the plains. Picture this, April 14th, 1935. A Sunday meant for church bells and family dinners, but instead the sky went black, the wind roared, and a wall of dust swallowed everything in its path. They called it Black Sunday, the worst storm of the Dust Bowl, a disaster that choked the life out of the Great Plains. Here's your hook, folks. Some say it wasn't just nature's wrath, but something older, something awakened in the earth, stirring in the shadows of that dust. Ready to dig in? Let's ride into the storm. The 1930s were brutal in the Midwest, a decade of cracked soil and broken dreams, where farmers fought to carve a living from land worn thin by drought and overplowing. The Great Plains, once a sea of grass, had turned to powder, fields stretching endless under a sun that baked everything dry. Families in Oklahoma, Kansas, Texas, they'd seen dust storms before, gritty winds that stung your eyes and coated your tongue, but nothing like what was coming. That morning started calm, a rare blue sky breaking through weeks of haze, folks stepping out in their Sunday best, kids running free, a flicker of hope after years of struggle. They didn't know the air was lying, holding its breath for something monstrous. By noon, the wind picked up, a low hum rolling over the horizon, and farmers paused, squinting north, where a shadow loomed, faint at first, like smoke from a distant fire. It grew fast, a towering wall of black, miles wide, miles high, swallowing the sun, turning day to night in minutes. People ran, shouting, herding livestock into barns, slamming shutters, but there was no outrunning it, no hiding from it. The dust hit like a tidal wave, roaring louder than a freight train, a beast made of earth and air. Houses shook, windows rattled, and the world outside vanished, buried in a choking shroud that blotted out everything, leaving only darkness and the howl of the wind. Inside, families huddled, rags stuffed under doors, wet cloths over their faces, coughing, praying, the dust seeping through anyway, fine as flour, clogging lungs, painting skin gray. It wasn't just dirt, it was alive, a force that pressed against the walls, whispered through the cracks, a presence that felt personal, vengeful, like the land itself had turned on them. Static crackled in the air, blue sparks jumping between fingers, metal humming with charge, and some swore they heard voices in the wind, low moans, calls from nowhere, stirring fear deeper than the storm itself. By night, the worst had passed, but the damage was done, crops gone, homes buried, lives shattered, and a question lingering, was this just weather or something more? This wasn't the first storm of the Dust Bowl, but it was the one they'd never forget, a day that rewrote the rules of survival, a day that left stories too wild to dismiss. Black Sunday didn't just break the land, it broke the people, and in its wake whispers grew, tales of shadows moving in the dust, of things the wind carried that weren't meant to be seen. We're not stopping at history tonight, we're chasing the edge of the unknown, peeling back the layers of a storm that might have been more than nature's tantrum. Buckle up, because this tale's about to get dustier, darker, and a whole lot stranger. Now hold tight, because Black Sunday's about to kick up more than dust. It's about to unearth a mystery so thick it'll choke your thoughts and leave you gasping for answers. That storm didn't just bury farms and dreams. It stirred something deep, something the plains had held down for centuries. And on April 14th, 1935, it broke free, riding the wind like a shadow with a pulse. History calls it a natural disaster, a freak mix of drought and bad farming, but the folks who lived through it, the ones who felt it in their bones, they whispered different tales of a darkness that wasn't just dirt, a darkness that watched, waited, and wanted. Here's your hook. Some say the Dust Bowl woke an ancient force, a hunger in the earth, and Black Sunday was its grand entrance, a day that changed the plains forever. Let's dive into the grit, because this storm's got secrets. Picture the Great Plains before the storm hit, a patchwork of struggling farms, clapboard houses leaning against the wind, fields so dry they cracked like old skin under a merciless sun. Families like the Hendersons, out in Oklahoma's panhandle, were clinging to hope, their crops shriveled, their cattle skeletal. But that Sunday morning felt different. A strange calm settling over the land, the air heavy, almost expectant. Clara Henderson, a mother of three, stepped outside, her apron fluttering, her eyes scanning the horizon, and she saw it first, a smudge of black creeping south, slow at first, then fast, too fast. A wall of dust rising like a tidal wave, swallowing the sky, turning noon to midnight in a heartbeat. The wind hit hard, a roar that shook the ground, dust blasting through every crack, every seam, a gritty fog that stung like needles and tasted like death. Clara yelled for her husband, Tom, and they scrambled, shoving towels under doors, boarding windows, but it was useless. The dust poured in, a living thing, coating their lungs, their eyes, their world in gray. Outside, the storm raged, visibility gone, the barn a faint shadow 10 feet away, the chickens screaming, then silent, buried alive in their coops. Tom lit a lantern, its flame flickering weak, and that's when they heard it, a sound beneath the wind, a low hum, rhythmic, like a heartbeat pulsing through the earth, steady, deliberate, not natural, not right. Clara clutched her rosary, her lips moving in prayer, but Tom froze, his ears straining, because it wasn't just noise, it was voices, faint at first, woven into the howl, calling names, their names Clara, Tom, soft, insistent, pulling at their minds. The kids huddled in the corner, coughing, their faces pale, and little Mary, just 8, pointed at the wall, her voice trembling, saying she saw shapes, tall and thin, moving in the dust outside, shadows that didn't match the wind, didn't belong. Tom grabbed a shovel, ready to fight, but what do you swing at when it's everywhere, when it's the air itself, thick with something alive, something angry? Across the plains it was the same, farms swallowed, towns blinded, people trapped in a nightmare they couldn't wake from. In Kansas, a preacher named Amos stood in his church, the pews empty, the windows rattling, and he swore the dust carried whispers, old words, older than English, older than the Bible, chanting low, filling the room with a weight that pressed him to his knees. In Texas, a rancher saw his herd bolt, stampeding blind into the storm, and later found them, not scattered, but lined up, still, facing north like they'd been called. Their eyes wide, their breath gone, no marks, just dust piled high. Everywhere the storm left signs, static sparking blue in the dark, metal buzzing with charge, and those voices, relentless, threading through the chaos, luring, taunting, promising something no one could name. The natives knew more, the Cheyenne and Comanche who'd roamed the plains long before plows tore the grass away. They'd warned the settlers, told tales of a spirit in the earth, a guardian of the land, sleeping deep, roused only when the balance broke. They called it the Dust Singer, a force that fed on harmony, that punished greed, and when the farmers stripped the plains bare, when the wind took the last of the soil, it woke, its song rising with the dust, its will bending the storm to its purpose. The settlers hadn't listened, laughed it off as superstition, but now, in the black heart of Sunday, they felt it, a presence older than their towns, older than their God, and it was here, awake, alive. By afternoon, the storm peaked, a monster of dirt and wind, stretching from Canada to Texas, 1,000 miles of darkness, burying roads, choking rivers, turning the plains into a wasteland. People died, lungs clogged, hearts failing, but others survived, and they talked, in hushed tones, about what they'd seen. Shadows dancing in the haze, figures that moved when the wind didn't, eyes glowing faint through the dust, yellow and cold, watching them. A farmer in Oklahoma swore he saw a hand reach from the storm, skeletal, clawing at his door, then gone, leaving scratches no wind could make. A girl in Kansas said she heard her dead brother's voice, calling her outside, sweet and clear, until her mother yanked her back, the door slamming shut as the dust pressed harder, like it wanted in, like it knew her name too. The storm didn't just blind, it changed things, left marks that lingered long after the wind died down. In Dodge City, a radio crackled to life, no power, no signal, spitting static laced with words, "Come home," over and over, until the operator smashed it silent, his hands shaking, his story spreading fast. In Amarillo, a well dried up overnight, its water gone, replaced by a layer of dust so fine it shimmered, and folks swore they saw it shift, ripple, like something breathed beneath. The plains weren't the same after that. The land felt heavier, the air thicker, and the people who stayed, they adapted, but they never forgot, never stopped listening for that hum, that whisper, that call from the dust. This wasn't your average storm, not some random act of nature gone wild. It was a reckoning, a moment when the earth spoke back, and what it said wasn't kind, wasn't quiet, wasn't human. Black Sunday became a legend, not just for its size, but for its strangeness, a tale that stuck in the craw of every farmer, every preacher, every soul who'd faced it. And here's the kicker, the part that'll make you share this on X. Some say the dust singer never went back to sleep, that it's still out there, waiting in the plains, humming low, ready for the next time we push the land too far. This story's got more to give, more shadows to chase, so don't drift away, because the dust hasn't settled yet, not by a long shot. The dust hasn't settled yet. It's swirling thicker, darker, and Black Sunday's about to hit its breaking point, a moment so wild it'll grip your chest and squeeze tight. The plains are a graveyard now, farms buried, lives hanging by threads, but the storm's not done. It's building to a scream, a roar that's more than wind, more than dirt, a force with intent, with fury. Picture a lonely farmhouse in Kansas, the last holdout on a road swallowed by the black, a family fighting to breathe, to stay sane, as the dust singer's song rises, calling them into the void. This is the heart of the nightmare, the peak of the terror, and it's coming fast, unstoppable, alive. The Miller family had nowhere to run, their house creaking under the storm's weight, the walls groaning, the dust piling high against the door, trapping them inside. John Miller, a wiry farmer with calloused hands, stood by the window, his face gray, his eyes burning, watching the world vanish, the black wall pressing closer, thicker, alive with shapes he couldn't name. His wife, Ruth, knelt by the fireplace, her breath ragged, her hands clutching a damp rag, wiping dust from her lips, her voice a whisper, praying for dawn, for light, for anything but this. The air hummed, electric, the lantern flickering blue, and the sound came again, that low pulse, that heartbeat, louder now, shaking the floor, rattling the glass, pulling at their nerves. Then the voices hit, clear this time, not whispers, but shouts, a chorus cutting through the wind. "John, Ruth, come out!" Over and over, sharp and cold like ice in their veins. Ruth dropped the rag, her eyes wide, her hands trembling. Because it wasn't just random, it was personal, it knew them, wanted them. And John turned, his jaw tight, his fists clenched, yelling back into the dark, "Leave us be!" But the storm answered, a howl that shook the roof, a gust that cracked the window, sending shards spinning, dust pouring in like a flood, choking the room, blinding them. Outside, the shapes moved, tall and jagged, shadows in the haze, not human, not animal, something else, circling the house, their eyes glowing faint, yellow and steady, cutting through the black like lanterns in a fog. John grabbed a chair, wedging it against the door, his heart pounding, his mind racing, because the dust wasn't just blinding, it was pressing, pushing, a weight that bent the walls, that clawed at the cracks, hungry, alive. Ruth screamed, pointing at the ceiling, where the beams groaned, dust sifting down, and there, in the swirl, a face formed, faint, skeletal, its mouth open, singing, calling, its voice joining the chorus, filling the house with a sound that tore at their sanity. The storm surged, a wave of black crashing over the plains, swallowing everything. The miller's farm just one speck in a sea of chaos, but it focused there, zeroed in, the dust singer's will bending the wind, the earth, the dark into a single purpose. The roof buckled, tiles ripping free, the walls trembling, and John lunged for Ruth, pulling her down, shielding her as the house shook, the dust flooding in, a tide of grit and shadow that buried the table, the chairs, the world they'd built. The voices peaked, a scream that drowned the wind, "Come with us!" And the shapes closed in, their glow brighter, their forms sharper, reaching through the walls, not breaking them, but passing through, hands of dust and bone stretching toward the couple, cold, insistent, eternal. Ruth fought, clawing at the floor, her nails splintering, her breath a gasp, but John felt it, a pull, a tug deep in his chest, like the storm was inside him now, singing to him, promising rest, promising peace, if he'd just let go. He staggered, his eyes locked on the shapes, their faces shifting, familiar. His father, his brother, lost years ago, their voices soft. "John, it's time." And he reached back, his hand shaking, until Ruth's cry snapped him free, her arms around him, dragging him back, anchoring him to the floor, to her, to life. The storm raged harder, furious, cheated, the shapes dissolving, the voices fading, but the house held barely, its walls scarred, its heart still beating. When the wind finally died, the plains were silent, too silent, the dust settling slow, a shroud over a land remade. The millers crawled out, coughing, trembling, their home a ruin, their lives a thread, but alive, marked by something they couldn't explain, something that left scratches on the walls, whispers in their dreams, a presence that hadn't gone, just retreated, waiting. Black Sunday was over, but its shadow lingered, a scar across the earth, a song still humming low, a promise of return, a warning in the wind that the dust singer wasn't done, not yet, not ever. The storm's howl faded, the dust settled slow, but Black Sunday left more than ruins. It left a silence that weighed heavy, a stillness that whispered of things unfinished, things waiting. The plains stretched out, gray and lifeless, a sea of dirt where life once grew, where hope once stood, now a wasteland marked by the dust singer's touch. The miller's farmhouse leaned crooked, half-buried, its windows dark, its walls scratched with lines no wind could carve, a testament to a night they'd carry forever. John and Ruth stepped outside, their breath shallow, their hands clasped tight, staring at a horizon remade, a land that felt foreign, alive with a hum they couldn't shake, a hum that lingered in their ears, their dreams, their bones. Others emerged too, across Oklahoma, Kansas, Texas, survivors crawling from shelters, their faces masked in dust, their eyes hollow, their stories the same, shadows in the storm, voices in the wind, a presence that wasn't just nature gone mad. In Gaiman, a widow found her fence posts twisted, bent toward the north, like they'd been pulled by unseen hands. And in Dalhart, a well shimmered with dust that moved, rippling slow, long after the wind died. The plains were scarred, not just by loss, but by something deeper, a mark that sank into the soil, a warning that the dust singer hadn't left. It had claimed the land, turned it into its own, a stage for a song that never stopped, a call that echoed still. Years passed, the dust bowl eased, the rains returned, but Black Sunday stuck, a memory that grew into legend, a tale told by firelight, passed down through generations, not just of a storm, but of what it woke. Farmers in the 50s swore they heard it, a hum in the fields on quiet nights, a shadow flickering at the edge of sight. And in the 80s, a geologist drilling deep found layers of dust that pulsed, faint but real, like the earth breathed beneath. Today, in 2025, folks on the plains still talk, posting clips online, grainy footage of dust swirling odd against the wind, a low hum caught on mics, a whisper of "come home," stirring debates, sparking chills, a mystery that won't fade, a force that won't sleep. So, what was Black Sunday? A freak storm, a punishment for greed, or a door cracked open to something ancient, something the plains had buried until we tore it loose? Maybe it's all three, a collision of man and earth, a song of dust and shadow that's still playing, low and steady, waiting for the next verse. The dust singers out there, folks, in the wind, in the soil, a guardian, a hunter, a voice that's lasted 90 years and counting, a reminder that some things don't forgive, don't forget, don't die. This tale ends here, but the dust doesn't. It drifts on, carrying secrets we'll never fully grasp, watching us from the plains, humming its endless tune. Now, if this story grabbed you, shook you, made you feel the dust in your throat, hit that subscribe button on CogniTale, unlocking ancient stories, because we've got more hidden tales coming, stranger, wilder, ready to haunt your nights. Drop a comment, tell us, was it just a storm or something more? Like this video if it hooked you, skip it if it didn't. We're tough enough, and share it with your friends, your kin, anyone who loves a good mystery, because Black Sunday's too big to keep quiet. Stick around, shiver with us, laugh with us, and dive into the next tale. It's gonna be a dusty ride you won't forget.